Hey, everyone. I don't have a countdown timer set up. It's 1 minute till 10. And we'll just hang out here for a minute and wait for folks to join us. I'm seeing there's like a little glare on the screen from my teleprompter. Yeah, so what I'm using to stream today is the Elgato prompter. So I can see the chat directly in front of the camera. I'm using the Mackie mainstream to stream with. I'm using the Sony a6700. It's set in 1080p because I'm streaming. I don't need 4K for this stream. So I'm using the a6700 as my camera. That's going into the Mackie mainstream. And then I'm using the Elgato Wave 3, which is also going into the Mackie mainstream. And that's how I'm streaming today, in case you want to know what equipment I'm using. Today is all about video podcasts and more specifically the post-production workflow that goes into that. Before I get started, there's a glare. It's kind of by my microphone. One of the downsides to the prompter is that I have it set up in front of my window. And that means that if I don't have the camera completely protected on the back end, it does give a little bit of a reflection sometimes. So that's what that is. If you're seeing that down here, I don't think it should impact this video today. But really, welcome to the studio. My name is Edholm. I own a video production company, a video marketing production company. So I specialize in digital marketing. And, video is such a big part of that now that I offer a wide range of video production services, one of those being podcasts. Um, I get a ton of questions about my post production workflow for my podcasts. So that's what I'm going to go over today. If you have any questions, hop on here, or if you are watching the replay, then I invite you to leave your questions in the comments below. But basically, what I'm going to do today is just talk through how I handle post production for my podcasts. And I think the reason why there isn't a lot of information, even here on YouTube, about post production workflow is because it could honestly be its own channel, its own topic. There are just hundreds of different ways that you can do post production for podcasts. I'm going to share with you today what my methods are. If you have any questions, uh, feel free to leave them in the chat and I'll just give you my 2 cents. Again, I'm not saying that mine is the best way or the right way or the way that you must do it, but this is how I'm doing it now. The other big key factor to post production, anything right now, is AI. So I will be sharing with you today how I have incorporated AI into my post production workflows. How it's helping me. And, it's still up in the air as to whether or not these workflows or AI incorporation is making things more efficient for my post production workflow at this point in time. Um, my thought is that right now it's good and it's just going to continue getting better. So I'll share with you those details today. I'm going to go over virtual podcasts, also in person podcast production. In my opinion, if you have a podcast in 2024, you should also have video. Why not? Um, we may as well be collecting both. Now, in saying that, because it's a podcast, I do prioritize audio quality over anything else. So while I'm in post production, although I am focusing on video, at the end of the day, when I distribute podcast episodes for myself or my clients, I want to make sure that audio sounds great. And I'm distributing it across all mediums, which means that some have video, some do not. But I primarily am editing out a video. I am optimizing my audio in my video edits. And then when I'm doing the export, then I can just upload the audio only file wherever I want. Um, so that kind of gives you the gist. So I have some notes over here. And yeah, we'll be talking about all of this today. Any questions? Where are you joining from? If you're joining live, I see there's a couple people here. If you are joining live, introduce yourself. That'd be great. I mentioned before I own my own video marketing company. I host and produce my own podcast, and I also produce and record and edit and distribute podcasts for my clients. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. If you are somebody who doesn't offer these services for your clients, this information is still helpful. So either way, I'm just kind of mixing it into, hey, Kadar, I'm going to be in the Netherlands later this month. So welcome. I'm happy you're here. I haven't been to the Netherlands yet either, so I'm really excited about visiting. If you have any tips, I'll be in Amsterdam and Bruges. If you have any tips about what to do while I'm there, we're sidebarring here, but that'd be awesome. Okay, back to what we're doing today. So I mentioned I do this for myself, for my own podcast, but I do this for clients. And I offer this service because I work with business owners on their marketing, on everything marketing. And finding the time to create quality content is always a challenge. And what I found is that for most business owners, having a podcast is the easiest way to create a ton of quality content for social media or marketing or ads or whatever you might need. So, this is a service that's very popular right now. And number one, it's because of the amount of quality content you can get out of these conversations. And also, for the most part, when you're sitting in front of someone else and you're capturing a conversation, you're comfortable. A big challenge that I face with my clients, anybody who's creating video content, is getting in front of the camera, even though everybody should be doing it. It's it's an excuse I hear from a lot of business owners about not doing it. It's because they're nervous, they're not comfortable on camera, and it takes a little time to get used to being on camera. So this is a great way. Having a podcast cast and interviewing it and having an interview means that somebody can sit down and have a conversation with someone else. They're focused on the conversation rather than the cameras. They're not looking directly at the cameras. So this is why I really promote this style of content creation here in 2024. And I've already mentioned that there's so many different ways to do this when it comes to post production. So before I go on, this video is not sponsored. Everything that you are seeing here, whether I talk about equipment or tools or software or anything, it's all purchased by me. It's something that I use. All of these tools are things that I use on a regular basis. I'm also experimenting also all the time on a regular basis. This workflow is constantly changing. So if you hear me talk about something today, I'm open to hearing feedback about how I might be able to improve these processes. But the links that you see down below, if you're watching the replay, anything that I cover today, I'll place a link down below in the description for that tool or piece of equipment. They're probably going to be affiliate links. And of course, by using those links, you're helping to support the channel. So I'm just going to thank you in advance if you decide to use those links. I think all of the stuff that I wanted to mention before I got into it is out of the way. And let's go ahead and talk about the two different types of podcasts that I'm actively working on and pitching to my clients. So the first one are virtual podcasts. So in my opinion, this is the easiest way to be doing a video podcast right now. Everybody is pretty much used to being on Zoom. They're comfortable being on camera. They're comfortable with having conversations with other people in a virtual environment. And there's a number of different tools out there that can accommodate this. One is Zoom, one is StreamYard, one is Riverside. There's probably more. These are the three that I'm most familiar with. Zoom is great because everybody probably has it and is using it. I will say that the video and audio quality that you get out of Zoom is not great. It's not ideal. So if you're doing a virtual podcast and that's all you have, use it. But you just have less flexibility with the files and the post-production in Zoom, so I actually advise against it. StreamYard, you can also record interviews in StreamYard, and the quality is better. Audio and video quality is better, but when it comes to post-production, it's not all that great. It's a little more difficult to use. It's about the same as Zoom, apart from the audio and video quality. The tool that I'm using the most right now is Riverside. Man, what a great environment to hop in and capture virtual podcasts with right now. The reason why is because you can capture mostly and stream mostly into 10 up to 1080. I think they're starting to incorporate 4K right now. Oh, Tessie, I will how do I get clients? I'll talk about that here in a little bit. Let's cover the workflows and then I'll get to that question for sure. So, for virtual clients, Riverside, I use this for my own podcast and I also use it and encourage my clients to use it. You're going to get high quality video out of it. You're going to get high quality audio out of it. And when it comes to the edit, Riverside provides editing tools directly in the interface, and you can export any type of video file you might need to do your edit. What I do in Riverside is I actually export the files that have audio isolation with video. So what I mean by isolation, you're only hearing one person's voice and you're only getting their specific video. So if I'm speaking to somebody else, if I were to download my file only, you wouldn't hear the other person's voice and you would only see their video, if that makes sense. So I'll get to why I do that. Um, Also, in Riverside, you can just download a grid of your conversation. You can clip the beginning and end. You can just cut that off and you can export a grid view, meaning that both of you are in the view, how many ever people you might be interviewing. So if there's two people, you have both people in that view. You have the stereo audio. And by stereo, I mean that you have the audio from both people. You can just export that right out of Riverside. You have a 1080p video. You have high quality audio. You can actually do some enhancement of your audio directly in Riverside. You export it, done. In fact, that is my recommended way to do a podcast if you are not an editor, if you want something high quality, and you can do that. Riverside also has something called Magic Clips. So this is new functionality for them, but if you want to make clips out of your video, you can do that directly in Riverside. You do have to have the appropriate package purchased in order to do that. But Riverside is making improvements all the time. They're incorporating AI. You can generate show notes out of Riverside. You can also see your transcript. So you can download and see the transcript from that episode. So Riverside is the way to go right now, in my opinion. If you know of a better tool that I don't know of, let me know in the comments. Yep. Quirkiness of Riverside. If you are recording with someone, I found the recordings to be glitchy, meaning it freezes a lot during the conversation. But what Riverside does is they record everything on each person's local computer. So it's recorded on the computer. So it actually captures everything, even though in the conversation it might freeze up or buffer or get glitchy. At the end of the day, you will have a sound recording to work off of. So what Riverside does is as you're recording, it's recording those files locally. And then before you stop recording with the person, you just want to make sure that all those files are uploaded and you can see like it'll let you know if it's 90% uploaded. Keep that person on in the conversation after you've stopped recording until all those files have uploaded and it says 100% uploaded, and then you'll have what you need. All right, from Mexico also, Netherlands and Mexico. Hi, everyone. All right. So that's how I record podcasts and then use Riverside internally. I'm going to pause right now. Tessie, you have a great question. How do you get clients? You have to ask for it. If you don't ask, you don't get. So first of all, if I am not currently working with a client and I see that they could use these services, then I'm reaching out to them. So I'm networking. I'm based out of Las Vegas. I'm networking here in town. Threads right now is a great place to make B2B connections. If you're not on Threads right now, I've connected with some really great people, and it's work. It's asking for the work. So that's how I get clients. I also get clients because I'm online a lot. I'm utilizing social media and my YouTube channel to get clients. The other thing I'm doing is if I already have a client and I think that they could be a good fit for a podcast I'm pitching them, and I'm showing them the benefits of what that is. So when it comes to pricing, it depends. What I do is I try to work with my clients on their budget. And, one option, if they don't have a huge budget, is this Riverside option. You can, determine how much time it would take for you to do the post production for a virtually recorded podcast, see what time that is and price accordingly. That would probably be your least expensive package if you're not doing a lot of editing out of Riverside, like meaning exporting and editing things, which I'll get to in a second, all the way into in-person stuff. So that gets a little more expensive. And the amount of time that you spend on editing is a big part of that. So how do I get clients? I ask for it. And I put a lot of time and effort into my sales and marketing, and then upselling current clients is how I get my clients. And then pricing has to do with their budget and my pricing just coming together with a good fit. So I hope that answers your question, Tessie. Back to Riverside. My post-production workflow, me personally, I do not edit in Riverside because I just know how to edit using other platforms and programs. I actually use AI to edit my Riverside videos. So what I do is I export the isolated files for each person in the episode, and then I export the grid version of the episode. You got it, Tessie. So what happens is I export, and the editing platform that I'm most comfortable using is Final Cut Pro. However, there are no AI tools available for Final Cut Pro right now. So I'm also editing out of Adobe, out of Premiere Pro, and I'm also learning DaVinci right now. Because when it comes to podcasts, those Premiere Pro and DaVinci are actually the better platforms to do multicam editing right now. One, because of AI incorporation, and two, because of different editing aspects that we'll get to when I talk about in-person podcasts. Any questions about recording virtually in Riverside? Any questions about that before I move on to the next one? Feel free to chime in, everyone. I'm here to answer any questions right here and right now. And then again, if you're tuning in for the replay, leave a comment below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Okay, for my post-production workflow out of Riverside, I export each person's isolated file. So when that file downloads, it's a 1080p version of just that person's camera angle and their voice only. So doesn't matter the number of guests in that interview. I'm downloading those individual files, and then I'm also downloading the grid version in case I want to incorporate a side-by-side in the edit. From there, what I'm doing is, and there are different, when you're going to Riverside, there are different types of exports you can do. You can do the raw video or you can do the aligned video. I just do the raw video. The raw video file is exactly how it's recorded locally. And actually, I'm going to change that. What I do is I do the aligned video version. So that's important because of this next step. When you pull your files out and you are going to do a multicam edit, number one, if you're using multicam in Final Cut Pro, you can just set those two files up and you can manually cut the video depending on whoever's speaking at the time. But I don't do it that way because the way I export my files. The other method you can do is pull your files out and import them as separate files in Final Cut or even in Premiere Pro, even in DaVinci. And because I've exported those files with that person's audio only, I can look at the waveforms and see when a person is speaking, and that's going to help me cut down on the time it takes to manually cut the camera angles. There is some time that goes into this, and typically speaking, I always double the amount of time for each episode. So if an episode is an hour, it's going to take me at least 2 hours to manually cut an episode. Now, because of AI, there's FireCut is the extension that I use. So what I'll do is I'll export those 2 files, the isolated files, into Premiere Pro, and I'm paying a monthly fee for Premiere Pro. And I'm also paying a monthly fee for FireCut. But the way that AI works is it will automatically do those cuts for you. So what would take me 2 hours, I'm pretty much able to cut that time down into 30 minutes to an hour if it's an hour-long episode. So I upload to Adobe. I let FireCut do its thing. The trick is, though, that both of your files have to start at the same time and be synced. So that's why I do the aligned video export out of Riverside, so that I can just line the files up and they both start at the same time. And then FireCut will go through, it'll make those cuts for you. These cuts aren't always ideal. There's different ways you can cut in FireCut. Sometimes, somebody might be doing something weird, like scratching their nose or licking their lips in a weird way. And so what I like to do from there is actually edit those cuts. And the easiest way to do that is in DaVinci. So yeah, right now I am, for the most part, if I'm getting real picky about my edits and the customer's paying for this type of pickiness, I'm doing an XML. I do the cut in Adobe, and I do an XML export, and I import that project into DaVinci Resolve. And then in DaVinci, you can actually, it's easier, in my opinion, and for me, it's easier to move and change those cuts in DaVinci Resolve. It's also easier in DaVinci Resolve to make camera angle changes in the XML output. And that's how I am editing virtual interviews right now. Once I have the interview edited, then for the most part, all of my podcasts have an intro or an outro, or maybe there's commercials I need to put in the middle somewhere. Whatever other editing, that fine-tune editing, I just wait till the very end to do that. I also optimize all of my audio, which could be a whole nother video. I also optimize all of my audio before I export. And I export, when it's time to export, I export in 1080. And then I also will export a separate audio file. So it's all sounding the same. Now, when it comes to video podcasts, this is just how I do it. I don't do it in 4K. Even for in-person interviews, those file sizes are just way too big. And for the clients that I service, the extra amount of time and energy and file management it takes to handle and manage 4K anything right now is it starts to get expensive. So if a client wants 4K, I'm actually going to charge accordingly. But for all the clients I'm servicing right now, and honestly, for all intents and purposes, 1080p is just fine. After I have that final episode edited, then I'm using a tool like Opus or Video, VIDYO, to help cut vertical clips for social media use. So that is my virtual podcast workflow right now using Riverside, and that's the easiest workflow I have right now. In person does get a little more involved, but that's how I'm doing virtual podcasts. Any questions about virtual podcast post-production workflow? If you are not comfortable editing or optimizing audio, a tool that I turn to a lot, especially when there's background noise, I go on site a lot of times to record with clients. I have a portable studio that I take with me. I'm not recording in soundproof environments most of the time. And one of the tools I use to cut down on background noise and or to optimize my audio, if I am trying to streamline, like really streamline, then I'm using Aphonic. I'll put that link in the description at the end of this recording as well. I've been using Aphonic for years now, and it will level everyone's voices so they're all at the same level. It will optimize and it'll also remove any background noise. Yes. Squadcast. Yes. And Descript. Yeah. Okay. So the Squadcast and Descript, man, I would love Descript. I really, really would. I'm finding that editing in Riverside is easier than Descript right now. Um, Not much easier. It's about the same. I You'll hear me talk about this a lot in my videos. When it comes to equipment or editing, there is a certain tolerance that I have with tools, and if I get to a place where I'm spending too much time and I'm getting too frustrated, especially with client work. I mean, it takes a lot of time to nail down these workflows. If I reach a level of frustration and I know that there's a better option out there, I'm just going to use the better option. Um, Yes. So that's all I want to know, if 1080p is fine. Yes, the ATEM output, which I'm going to speak about in a minute. I use the ATEM Mini Pro ISO for my output for in-person interviews. Yes, 1080p, especially for live streaming. These devices are mainly made for live streaming, so the 1080p output is what's being used right now. That's all I'm using right now. You can replace 1080p footage with 4K footage. There are videos out there about how to do that. But honestly, it's just another step. And I don't know, maybe there will probably be a time in the future when I move to 4K for these huge videos, but for right now, I'm not. When you're using tools like Opus, Clips, and Video to create vertical content, also I mentioned, you can do this right in Riverside, Magic Clips. They'll create this content for you. Um, these platforms are also optimizing the video, so the video looks fine, in my opinion, for social media and for sharing. Anything I can do to make these workflows efficient, I'm going to do it. So that's how I feel about it. Yes, turnaround has to be quick and quality, right? Um, is the audio going in and out? I hope not. Is that the same for everyone? Okay. Video is VIDYO. There's a VidIO that is an editing and caption tool, but if you want AI clips, you want to use Video VIDYO. All right. You ready to move on to in person? There's my studio right here. I don't have the mics out right now, but this is if somebody's coming here to the studio, this is where we're recording, or I'm going, and this is not a soundproof room. This is, I mean, take advantage of AI. It's just going to help. It also helps my clients because we don't have to rent a soundproof room anymore. We can just go with what we have. It helps cut down costs. It makes things so much easier and more efficient. We're not having to schedule studio time or anything like that. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it. Okay, in person. Multicam edits in person. So here's how I'm doing that. The easiest way, I'm going to start with the easiest way. The easiest way is to have one microphone per camera angle. So remember in Riverside how we had those isolated files where you're only capturing audio and video for one person in one file? You want to try to do the same in in-person videos. So if I have a camera that's pointing at me, whatever microphone I'm using, I want that going directly into that camera. Same with everybody else. This is the easiest way because at the end of the day, once you have that file, you download it to your computer, and you're going to be able to see when people are talking. So if you're manually cutting, you can just see, and you can do like a rough cut first and cut the video depending on the camera angle and depending on who's speaking. If you're going to use AI, there is a challenge here. For AI extensions right now, the video and audio files need to all start at the same time and be in sync with each other. So there is a little bit of manual work that I'm doing right now to manually sync those video files so that everybody is starting at the same exact time and those files are synced. Um, so you will run into that issue if you're going this route. But once you're over that, you can just let your AI tool run or manually cut and then follow kind of the same steps that I followed with the Riverside exports, file exports. If you are using equipment like I am, in order to optimize audio, I have a Rodecaster Pro 2. And also, I am running the HDMI outputs from my cameras into an ATEM Mini Pro ISO. So this is a more advanced option. This just requires more equipment. What's great is that to get started with podcasts, you don't need a ton of equipment. Um, in my opinion, you just want all the guests should at least have a decent microphone. But now we're getting into more advanced uh, podcast production. So simplest ways I've covered. And now what we're going to do is talk about a more advanced approach. So in this case, I have multiple cameras that are capturing different angles in the room. I have a camera pointing at each guest, and then I'll probably have like a wide view camera. So let's just, for all intents and purposes, a 3-camera setup for a 2-person interview. I have one camera that's capturing the whole room and both the guests in the same frame. And then I have one camera pointing to one person and another camera pointing to another person. For the microphones, I am capturing everything in the Rodecaster Pro 2, and I am using the ATEM Mini Pro ISO to collect the different camera angles in one device. You have to use the ATEM Mini Pro ISO for this workflow because the ATEM Mini Pro ISO or the Max or Pro, whatever the next level up is, will allow you to do a USB-C output. So what I'm doing is for all those cameras, I am running an HDMI cable out of each camera and into one of the inputs on, I'll show you, on the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. So you can do up to 4 camera inputs. On the back, let's see, let me cover my eyes. There is the, where is it? The USB out. Can y'all see it? It's right there. Okay. All that I do is I take my Samsung T7 external SD. I am running a cable from that USB-C out to this device. So this is key because all those camera angles are running through the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, and all of the camera angles are being collected here on this device. So they're all starting at the same time, so you don't have to worry about that in post-production. And regardless of if you're switching during the interview, you don't have to switch. You're just using this kind of as a middleware to capture all the camera angles in one place. So what I'm doing is I'm recording all of the footage locally on each camera, and then I'm running everything through the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, and I'm recording all the camera angles using this device as well. I have a backup. So if for some reason the SSD card runs out of storage or whatever, I've got a terabyte external SSD that I'm recording to. What is key in this case is that if you are running your microphones through something like the Rodecaster Pro 2, like I am, you also want to you want to attach your audio into an audio source here. So when those video files are captured, it's capturing it's capturing scratch audio as well, so you can sync your final audio up with the scratch audio so that you can sync everything in post. Y'all staying with me? I know it's a lot. So I'm capturing everything twice. I'm also recording locally on my Rodecaster Pro 2, and I have my settings set up in such a way that depending on what microphones we're using, I'm optimizing that as much as possible to try to limit the amount of audio optimization that I have to do in post. Okay. Now, when I'm done recording, oh, yes, and Rodecaster Pro 2 audio files, when I hit record on the Rodecaster Pro 2, audio is starting at the same time. So either way, I have a solid start if I'm going to use AI to do the edit for it in both my audio files and my video files that I can work off of to make sure everything's lined up in that timeline. So once I use FireCut or whatever extension, AI extension you're using to automatically do those cuts, then you can do that. Do you need to connect to the ATEM for audio? Do you need a specific 3.5 millimeter cable connected to the ATEM Mini for audio? There are terrible ones and there are great ones. So yes, I'm going to place a link to the one I have. Hang on. All right. For this question, I'm going to place a link to this cable. The reason why I want you to purchase this cable is because I probably went through 5 cables before I found a decent one for this. The output on the Rodecaster Pro 2 is a stereo output. And then I am plugging this end, the 3.5 millimeter cable, directly into the back of here. And the audio quality is pretty good. You can buy other cables. The quality is just not going to be so great. It's definitely going to be scratch audio with other cables that are out there. The other trick I use is I will use, if you don't have the stereo out on whatever device you're using, if you just have a line out, I use a 3.5 millimeter cable, and I'll just run that through as long as I have something. Or use a headphone out. I think that that's an overlooked way to send audio out of these devices for the Rodecaster Pro 2. It's also on the other side of the room where I'd grab it. It has 4 headphone outs. Most of the time, my clients are not wearing headphones. I am. I'm monitoring the audio during a recording. So I utilize one of those headphone outs. So, whatever size headphone jack you have on your device, run that out to a 3.5 millimeter, and you can do that here as well. So that's another option. The other thing you can do is you can control your audio levels with the volume knob on your headphone jack out. The Rodecaster Pro 2 does have a way to adjust your volume levels out of that stereo out, but some devices don't. But if you are using a headphone out, you can adjust your audio levels using that control knob. So, I'm running almost the same setup, except my audio is being recorded by Rode Wireless Go 2 internally and also into the camera recording. Yes, you can also do that too. Um, is that just one camera though? I do that if I'm using one camera. This is the method I use if I'm using multicam. So, yes, if you're doing a single person podcast interview, you can use this same cable, and instead of attaching this to the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, well, you can attach it right to your camera. I do that a lot. Yeah. Setup time. That's a whole nother video. Okay. Let's keep going with my post-production workflow for in-person interviews. So once I get back to the office, and this just happened this morning because I had a podcast interview yesterday. All right. Download your files right away. Even if you're coming home late, if you're coming back to the studio, get those recordings off of your SD cards and into your computer or whatever your storage system is. Now, I also have mine on an SSD. I also have it on my SD cards. I make sure everything's downloaded because I can't tell you how many times I've done this personally where I format my SD cards and there goes the interview. That's a bad day. So just some personal advice. Ooh, the other personal advice is the foam on your microphones, clean that off. Use some tape to get to clean your microphones. Those are my 2 hot tips for you today. If you're still here and listening in and you're a podcast person, make sure that those microphones are clean. All right. When I get back to the studio, I do some similar things that I've already covered is in terms of editing. There are a couple of different things. So I'm using the video files out of my external SSD that I've captured. And the challenge is that now I have different recordings that I'm using that I have to first sync up with those files. And here's what I mean by that. When you run your audio through your ATEM Mini Pro ISO and you're recording externally to this. So first of all, a couple of things. One is you can live switch and have a rough cut when you're done. Or I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. Or, when you get those video files, each video file is going to have the stereo audio connected to it. That makes it difficult when it goes in we go into the edit. Because remember, what I prefer is to have one person with just their voice in a file. So that way, when I'm editing, I can either do a rough cut manually and see where people are speaking, or I use an AI extension like FireCut that will do that cut for me. So what I do is I make sure that my Rodecaster Pro 2 is capturing different file types. So it's capturing a stereo mix. That means that the stereo mix has everybody's voices in it. And I'm also capturing individual inputs from each person. That means that XLR input 1 and that file would just have that person's voice only. And then same with 2, 3, and up to 4, obviously on the Rodecaster Pro 2. My first step is to sync the video up with the individual audio file only. You can do that in Final Cut, you can do it in Premiere Pro, and you can also do it in DaVinci, whatever tool you prefer. Oh, did DaVinci Resolve can separate the tracks? Gary, you're amazing. All right, perfect. I'm gonna look into that. Curtis Judd has it. All right, I'll definitely look into Curtis's channel and see. If you don't follow Curtis, anything audio, I'd learn a ton from him as well. So that's a great recommendation. So what I'm doing right now, and I'm gonna watch Curtis's video after this. I am syncing that individual person's audio up with whatever their camera angle is, so the video with the audio. And then I already have a hard start on either. Remember, we're pressing record on the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, which means that the recording is starting at the same time for all camera angles. So that work is done. And if for some reason I'm having issues with that start for those video files, I also have the same start time for all of my audio files that are coming out of my Rodecaster Pro 2. So I have a hard start for both. So I'll sync those files, and then I'm going to upload those files to Premiere Pro, and I am going to use FireCut to do the cuts. And now I'm back to where I am with all my other file exports, right? The other thing I do more often for if I need to be pickier with clients is now this is where I'm doing that XML export out of Premiere Pro. I'm importing it into DaVinci Resolve. Man, I cannot wait for the day when I can consolidate all of these different workflows. I'm literally working out of 3 editing programs right now, and that's like the bane of my existence at the moment. Um, then I can import into DaVinci and it's just easier to work out of DaVinci when it comes to making cut modifications and to also change camera angles if you need to. You can see it really nice and clearly on their timeline, and it still takes some time. So back to my point about the amount of time it's taking me to do these edits. I'm at the point now where I'm cutting my editing time about in half. So it used to be if I'm manually doing everything, if I had an hour-long episode, it would take me at least 2 hours to do all of the editing, the post-production, before I felt comfortable enough, meaning it might not be perfect, but comfortable enough to put an episode out, 1 to 1.5 times. Now, if I am if the episode is taking 2 hours to record or 1 hour to record, whatever it is, I can pretty much match that time in the post-production workflow at this time. If I am just exporting out of Riverside and just doing a grid export, done. That's like a fourth of the time. But for the client work I'm doing now, I have been able to cut the amount of time down, but the cost of the tools that I'm using and the amount of tools I'm using have grown. I am paying for Final Cut. That was just a one-time charge. I use that tool. Um, I'm going to talk about FireCut in a minute because there's another why. I'm going to talk about why I use FireCut. I'll talk about that in a minute. So, um, I'm using again, I am most comfortable in Final Cut, so I probably don't even have to use it, but I can do things so quickly in there that sometimes it makes sense to use Final Cut to do some of this editing. Specifically, lining up audio with a camera angle, I can just do that really fast in Final Cut. Um, I need to learn how to do that in Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve to that's just a personal thing. So I have Final Cut. I pay a monthly fee for Premiere Pro, and then in order to edit multicam in DaVinci Resolve, you do need to have the Pro version of the software. That's a one-time charge. I think I bought a piece of gear that had this is a while ago that had a license. It included a DaVinci Resolve license. So personally, haven't paid for that, but I paid for it by purchasing gear and so I have all of those, plus I'm paying for Riverside, plus I'm paying for FireCut, which are both monthly fees as well. So, it's like a time money exchange. You know, what and that's a personal decision, I think. How much money versus time are you willing to spend on this stuff in order to do your post-production? Um there are some other little steps that I'm taking, but for today, these are the high level workflows that I'm using for post production. FireCut. What's the name of the other one? It's the first one that came out. Let's see here. AI tools. It's pod. It's pod something. AutoPod. All right. I looked at AutoPod first, and a friend told me about FireCut. The reason why I chose FireCut over AutoPod is just because it has more functionality. So you can do multicam edits in AutoPod. It also does zooms, so it'll go through the footage, and if it detects some sort of fluctuation in someone's voice, like if they're excited or something, it'll zoom in. Um, Ooh, what lens for the A6700? So FireCut just has more functionality. They're adding stuff all the time. I haven't looked at AutoPod in a while, but that's personally why I'm using FireCut right now over AutoPod. I pay a monthly fee. If I really love a tool, I'll pay annually. If I'm just figuring out and trying out a tool, I'm going to pay monthly, even though it's a couple more dollars a month, because then I can cancel it whenever I want and move to another tool. When it comes to AI, that's just my approach right now. I am paying for these tools on a monthly basis so that if something better comes out that better fits my workflow, then all I have to do is transfer over to that tool. Or sometimes I like to try different tools. One month I'm trying AutoPod, another month I'm trying FireCut, and then I can determine which one to go with. Some examples, I will show you some examples. I just put out um, I have I've done a number of podcasts over the years. And the latest one is called Actionable Marketer. So I do tech reviews here on YouTube that has to do with the video production portion of my business, but I also do marketing. So I have a brand called Actionable Marketer. I work with DIY marketers on their marketing, and I have a podcast and I interview. I just launched the podcast, but the plan is to interview digital marketing experts to bring value to that platform so that we can talk about what's working and what's not working in marketing. So let me share an episode with y'all. And this episode happens to be with a friend of mine named Ryan Shuchuk. He's the best of Midland, Texas. We talk about podcasts in this interview. So perfect. I'll post a. We recorded out of Riverside in here. The workflow that includes FireCut integration is exactly what I used to edit this episode. The cold open I pulled from FireCut also. one of the Zoom it'll show you where the emphasis is happening. So what I did was I used one of the Zoom, findings out of FireCut, and I used that for my cold open. So everything that you're seeing in this episode, this link is, all done using the workflow I'm going over today. Um, what else? Oh, and I am using video. I'm experimenting with VidYO, the AI tool I spoke about earlier about creating vertical clips from an episode. I am using that. I used video for this specific episode to create vertical clips, and of course, I'm slow dripping those vertical clips out. If you visit Actionable Marketer, that those social media channels, you'll see that I'll be posting those vertical clips out for social media. Of course, I want to drive traffic from those clips over to the podcast episode so people watch it. So, Gary, that is one example for you. And the ATEM Mini ISO, because you want to see some in-person podcast recording. Oh, yeah, because you want to do some. Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's great. The output on all of these devices is only 1080p though. I'm not sure, Gary, if you were here earlier. Um, you're going to be capped out at 1080. I'm okay with that if you're okay with it because of the file sizes anyways. So that's why I use that device. Kadar, as a beginner, can I use what comes out of the ATEM stored on the Samsung SSD without much editing? Yep, you sure can. The file that comes out of the ATEM, it's made by so this device is made by Blackmagic. So one of the file outputs is actually the entire project. So what you could do is live switch just at least to get a rough cuts of the interview. You could live switch. What I do for that is there's an HDMI out on here. See, can you see it? It's over here. There's an HDMI out coming out of. You have to at least get the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. If you just get the ATEM Mini, you're not going to be able to do anything that we're talking about in this video today. So get at least the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. If you do an HDMI out and you have a monitor, you can live cut the recording. I like to have a monitor so I can view all the video angles anyways, for in-person interviews. Do a rough cut. You can export a DaVinci file, a project file, will be recorded as well on your SSD, and you can open that in DaVinci and you can adjust those edits, and it's pretty straightforward to do that. Cut the beginning, cut the end, export, done. So that is probably the easiest way to do any editing out of an external SSD using the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. Okay. Gary, I want to love Descript. I have used it. I still use it to transcribe videos. Um, Editing, it's just too clunky. I get too frustrated. And it's probably my own comfort level, but Descript is another tool that's improving all the time, and it would be great to be able to not be so frustrated editing that tool. So I'm always revisiting tools. They're always improving all the time. So Jeff Jeff swears by it. Yes. Oh, for TikTok clips? I'll have to check that out. I'll revisit Descript. I'm going to revisit Descript and see if I can emulate what your friend is talking about. Yeah, and templates. So we're key. If you weren't here at the very beginning, here's the thing. There's so many different ways you can do this. This is what is working for me right now, and I'm still experimenting. I am always working on being more efficient. This video is coming out in early April. I am positive by May, I'm going to have a different workflow. It's just something I'm constantly working on and trying to improve, and make more efficient. And not only for my own personal podcast, but again, the clients I work with, they don't have huge, gigantic podcast budgets. This is just such a great way to get a lot of quality content out there for yourself or for clients or anybody else. That I push it really hard. And in turn, what I try to do on the back end is make this as easy as possible, depending on whatever budget they have. Now, if a client has a crazy budget for a huge podcast, well, then I'm going to probably have a different workflow. But this is kind of what I'm working with right now. Yes. NLE. NLE. What does that acronym stand for? Well, how are you? So it looks like we have a number of people here today who have podcasts and oh, nonlinear editor. Got it. Thank you. Yes, Descript can be annoying. It's annoying for me. Yes, I gotcha. Um, I should check it out. Here's the thing. I'm trying to learn Premiere Pro right now and DaVinci Resolve right now, and run a business and have a YouTube channel and right. So I'm always looking for the quickest way to do stuff, but still produce quality. Small business matters. Ooh, I'll take a look at that, Gary. I did have a podcast out for a little while called Small Business Talk Podcast. And Instagram shut my account down for no reason. I don't know why they did. So I got frustrated and then I just started another podcast. So, yeah, let me know about your projects. I have a couple more minutes here today. So if you have any other questions about post production workflow that I'm doing right now, if you're seeing a way that I could be doing things better, I'm totally open to that. Um, or let me know what projects you're working on right now, and I'll definitely go check them out. Chris Williams behind the scenes video about his most recent. No, I have not. I'm going to check that out, Paul. Thank you. 5 cameras. Um, with the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, I can do up to 4. I typically do 3 camera angles though. And really, I rarely use the wide angle. I'm mostly using 2 angles in my edits. Um, the other thing I don't think I mentioned was once I have the 2 camera angle edit down, that's a majority of my edit. And then if I want to place in, wide angles in the interview, I kind of do that after the fact. I'll put my intro, my outro. I am using Spotify to do a lot of my distribution right now because you can just upload a video to Spotify and it'll distribute audio where it can. I'm sorry, video where it can, which is on Spotify, but it'll distribute the audio versions out as well to all of the different platforms that you have connected to that account, and it's free. So I'm using that right now. It's fine. Spotify took away a lot of the perks that Anchor had. Spotify purchased Anchor, so if you are aware of Anchor as a hosting platform for your podcast, then Spotify owns it now, and that's how I'm distributing my podcasts. And then, of course, YouTube is allowing you to have a podcast channel. It's still treated like a playlist right now. You can add your RSS feed to YouTube right now, but as far as distribution, you still have to upload separately. I'm really hoping that they improve that. I would love to be able to switch over to YouTube entirely for my distribution and not have to upload to both Spotify and YouTube. Dave Jackson. Gary, you're coming with all the info today. I have not heard of Dave Jackson. I'm going to Chris Williamson, Dave Jackson. We have Curtis Judd, Shoutouts today. And oh, that's awesome. That's good. I'll definitely check out those people. Any other shoutouts today of other creators out there sharing the details? Excellent, everyone. I want to thank you so much for being here. If you think of a question later, just come back and revisit this video, and I actively respond to my comments. If it's a tasteful comment, I will respond to it, and I'm happy to continue to do that. Thank you all so much for tuning in today, and the input you're giving me is appreciated as well. So hope you'll have a great day. I should be having another video come out this Sunday. if I can get that done tomorrow. And thanks everyone. Have a great day and hope to see you again. Take care.